What's up, guys? My name is James Davis. I am a filmmaker out of North Stonington, Connecticut, and today I'm going to be showing you how to get started in Adobe Premiere Pro. So this tutorial is aimed a lot more towards people who are just getting started. If you are familiar with Premiere Pro, this tutorial is not going to show you much that you don't know, because we're just covering the very basics. So before we even go down here and click on our Adobe Premiere, there's something that we need to actually do so that Premiere Pro knows where we want to save all of our files and everything. So I went apple picking with my girlfriend the other day, so we're just going to use this as our folder here. Now before I even get started, this is already driving me crazy, so what I'm going to do is just create a new folder. I'm going to select everything that's not that folder, and I'm going to drag it and drop it into that folder. That way we can see what's going on here. So we're going to clean this up, and we're just going to rename this footage. So there's two other folders that we're going to need in order to tell Premiere Pro where we want everything to go to keep ourselves organized so we don't lose anything and the computer's not working too hard to find files. So I'm going to go to New Folder, and the first folder I'm going to make is going to be Premiere Pro Project Files, and the next one is going to be Exports, and this simply is where we're going to be putting our finished files. Boom. So we have our footage. This is going to be where our final exports go, or the video that we're trying to make, and this is where we're going to tell Adobe Premiere to save all of our different files here. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Premiere Pro. So we're going to want to start a new project. Now if you've never used Adobe Premiere before, when you open the program, all of these are not going to be here. These are just random projects that I'm currently working on, but we're starting a new project. So we're going to go over here to the left where it says New Project and click on that guy. Now this is where we tell Adobe Premiere where we want to save everything. So I'm going to just call this project Apples, because that's the name of the folder, and I'm going to go to Browse, and this is where I'm going to want to find that Adobe Premiere project files that we just created. So right here where it says Premiere Pro project files, we're just going to double click on that, choose. Okay, now Adobe knows where I want to save all of my files so that things don't get lost and they're not hard for me to find. And here we are. So this is what Adobe Premiere will look like the first time that you open it. Right now we are in the assembly workspace. If for some reason your program does not default to here, what you can do is go up here to Window, the first drop down menu, it says Workspaces, and it's going to give you a long list of different workspaces that you can use. I'm going to stay in the assembly workspace right now just to keep things simple. Now the other problem you can see that we have here is right here. You can see that it says Effects Control. I don't want to be in the Effects Control, I want to be in my project window. So there's two ways I can get there. I can either use my mouse and scroll over to where it says Apples there, or I can use the hotkeys Shift 1, and that will bring me over to my project file here. Again, we're going to create a new folder, and this is going to be for my timelines. I suggest that you always create new bins to keep things in. That way it keeps things separated and you're not scrolling through your project window forever to try to find files that you've imported or created. I'm going to call this bin Timelines because it's where I'm going to keep my different sequences here. I've created that. I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to create my sequence. So I'm going to right click, New Item, Sequence right here. I'm going to hit that guy. Now it's going to come up with a bunch of different options that you can use for sequences. This can get a little bit technical, but for the sake of keeping it simple, you're going to use DSLR 1080p 24 or DSLR 1080p 30. Now this is kind of assuming that you live in the United States. If you lived somewhere in Europe, you would be using this guy right here, our DSLR 1080p 25. We're not going to get into why you would need different timelines for different places today. Basically, just to keep it simple, I'm going to click this guy right here. I'm going to go down to my sequence name, and again, I'm just going to type in Apples, and that's it. So I'm going to press OK, and it's going to bring me here. Now you can see I have my actual sequence or my timeline right here where the footage that I'm going to import is going to go, and it's where we're going to work with it. Now that we've done that, we want to hit this little back button here and bring us back to our main project, and I'm going to import some footage. For this project, because it's just a tutorial, I'm not going to import all of it. I know there's some like raw files in there that Premiere Pro does not jive with. You're going to select everything that you personally want to import and use in this project. Because this is a tutorial and I'm just showing you the basics of how to use this program, we're just going to select these 6 random clips and hit import right here. It's going to take a second to import the files. Okay, so these are the clips that we're going to be working with. So the first way that we can get this footage down into our timeline, and certainly the easiest but not the most accurate, is to just grab the entire clip, drag it down here, and boom. Now you're seeing that I'm getting this warning. That's because this footage is all in 4K and we created a 1080 timeline. So for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to put keep existing settings. If you do run into this, a little bonus, just click on it and go to set to frame size or scale to frame size. There is a difference between the two, but we're not going to get into that today. So this is my clip right here that we just dragged and dropped into our timeline. The other way to get this footage into here that's a little bit more desirable is to double click on a clip. I'm going to select a different clip here, and it's going to bring it into our source monitor. And what I can do here is I can set in and out points to actually drag this footage down into my timeline. And this is very easy to do. So instead of dragging this entire clip, I'm just going to select a little part of it. And I can do this by using the I and O hotkeys for in and out, or I can use these 2 little buttons inside my source monitor. I'm going to stick with the hotkeys because it's a little quicker and very easy to remember. So I'll just set I, scroll over to a different point in time, and press O. So same deal. I'm going to take this, drag it, and drop it into my timeline. Now you can see here this clip is much shorter, and that's because we selected just that little portion right here of the clip that we wanted to use. So those are our 2 ways to actually bring this footage down into our timeline in Premiere Pro. If I decide that I don't want some of this clip, I'm going to need to get rid of some of it, and this is the easiest way to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, and these are the different tools that are in Adobe Premiere. We're going to go right here where it says razor tool. I can either click the button or I can press C on my keyboard and it'll bring that up. And you can see over here, now that I hover in my timeline, you can see the razor blade. When I hover over my clip, I can actually cut this guy right there. And now I have 2 separate clips from that one giant clip that I dragged down into here earlier. Now, let's say I don't want this guy right here. I'm going to go back to my selection tool that we had before, and I can either press here or hit V on my keyboard. And now my cursor comes up in the timeline. And what I can do is I can take this clip and I can move it, I can bring it up, or for this video, we can just delete it. So it's gone completely. So now all we have to do is we can either drag this clip over, just like that, or I can just delete the space between them with a ripple delete. Okay, so those are the 2 ways that we can bring footage down into our timeline, and those are the 2 basic tools that you'll need, the razor blade and the selection tool, to make basic cuts within your video or your timeline here. Now, let's just assume that this is my final video. I know it's really not anything much, but just for the sake of showing you guys exactly how to do this quickly, I'm going to use these 3 clips as my final video. So I'm turning these straight out of my camera clips into a video with a cut in it. So I need to get to the end of this clip right here, and there's 2 ways I can do that. I can either take my mouse and scrub over, or I can press the down arrow. As long as that clip is selected, you can see that it's white and the others are blue. As long as that's selected, it will go to the end of that clip. From here, I'm going to press O, and that's basically just telling Adobe Premiere, this is the section of the timeline that I want to export. These are my in and out points for the video that I want to use. So from here, we are ready to go into our export window. And you can either do that by hitting Command M, or you can go to File, Export, Media. And it's going to open up my export settings. Now you're going to see that in here there's a couple of different options that look a little bit confusing. What we're going to use today, and I'm not going to explain it in detail, but we're going to use H.264, and where it says preset, we're just going to match source high bitrate. And from there, we're going to click on our output name, and we are going to navigate to the folder that we created called exports, because this is our final export. I'm going to double click on this guy. I'm going to leave the file name as apples.mp4 and hit save. Okay. Now under here, you want to make sure that you have both of these selected. So export video, export audio. This video doesn't happen to have any audio, but if it did, I want to make sure that this is selected. There are a lot more options down here that we can click on that will do different things for our video, but we're not going to go over that stuff today. From there, we are pretty much done. We can go to export, and it is actually going to export this video. Boom. Okay. And once the export finishes, it's going to bring you back to your timeline before you went into that actual export settings window. Now we can actually go find that file that we just created. So I'm going to go into my exports here. Again, I went to desktop, Apple, and then my exports was in here. And there it is. There's my finished file. And if I double click on this guy, it'll bring it up and I can watch through this. Alright guys, well, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're just getting started, these couple little tricks will at very least get you moving and help you understand a little bit more about how to basically manipulate and export footage within Adobe Premiere Pro. If you found this video helpful, if you'd like to see more of these tutorials, I'd love for you guys to like and subscribe to the page. And you can look forward to some more tutorials in the future that are not quite as simple.